All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Just wanted to say thank you again for being part of this first training session. Again, this is Gretchen, and I also wanted just to introduce quickly that we have Robert Todd on the line, and he is our Chief Product Officer, and Hasina on the line, who is our Content Marketing Manager. She's actually going to be just monitoring questions. So along today, if you do have questions, feel free to type those in, and she will be the one monitoring those and bringing those to our group just to make sure that we get anything answered that you might want to know more about. And just as a reminder, today we're going to talk a bit about user management. So the idea of how the user roster fits into your account, how groups are created. That's a very important part of training. And then one of the most common questions, after we get to the point of launching is, well, what do we do about all of our new hires? How do we get those people into the system now? And how do we make sure that they get training? So we're going to talk about those things, and then we will have time for Q&A at the end if you haven't already asked questions along the way. So again, feel free to do that. If something's not clear, if you just have a question about a certain task along the way, we definitely want to get those things answered so that you're aware of how to just manage the users that you have on your account. So first off, I'm actually going to turn things over to Robert. Again, he's our Chief Product Officer, just to give you a quick overview of, in a sense, where we started and where we are today with our platform and our product, and just to kind of help set the stage for what we're going to go into today.
All right. Hey, everybody. Sorry,
Robert,
I think I was battling Hasina to try and unmute myself. Hi. Nice to talk to you all, and really thanks for coming. We're super excited about this first training session, and hope that you will ask whatever questions you have and make sure that you get what you need, because that's what's most important to us. I want to just ask Gretchen to let me say just a few words in context about the product, about AI, the new platform that you're on, and about what our goals are for the product. And so you have a little context. When we set out to build, we had an LMS that for a long time, and when we set out to build a new platform, our focus was on a couple of things. One, creating a really engaging and user experience, really kind of upping the game on the quality and level of engagement for the employees and the end user experience. And as part of that experience, to deliver a lot of data and insight about what your employees were experiencing, what they were seeing in the organization, what they were thinking and feeling, so that we could inform inform you guys about what was happening, and give you more perspective and data and on what was on the experience, the work experience of your people around some of these tricky culture issues. So a really engaging user experience that generated lots of data and insight through our kind of dialogue-based learning process. Number two was we wanted to simplify the administration of recurring training, learning from our experience in the market and our experience with customers over a decade, and a system that would automate common tasks, common processes that are part of delivering recurring training, and especially compliance training, which has some unique needs. And our creation of campaigns that brought together sort of course tracks with assignments and program notifications and all of that into a single entity, working with dynamic groups to automatically assign training as you onboarded people, and things like that. That's the focus of campaigns, was really the ability to kind of simplify and automate the training process. And one of the things we learned is that making things simple can be complicated, and that the work that we did the work and our goals around automation and simplification left some gaps in terms of providing clarity and certainty and feedback to you, the users, the administrative users of the system, about what was happening and what your actions, if you initiated an action, what the result of that was. So we spent the past 3 or 4 months with a really heavy focus on clarifying, simplifying, and adding more user feedback and controls and visibility to the admin tools around campaigns. And we're in a place where we think we've improved that experience, and we have confidence in the way the system's operating today. We've launched some programs with some very large customers and done 10,000, trained 11,000 people over a period of a couple of weeks. So I feel like the system's really performing well now, and we're now very excited to do the training that we will start doing with new customers at the beginning of their engagement. And Gretchen's gonna, I think many of you are registered for all 3 of the trainings. We're gonna record them, and Gretchen, and they'll be available to you offline. And Gretchen's gonna lead you through those 3 trainings. And she's also gonna introduce you to a community that we've created for you that will be the best place to get any questions you have answered, whether it's about functionality in the platform or content or just what you need. And we are really, really interested to hear from you what you need, what you want, how we can make things better for you. Really, that's the most important thing to us, is to understand what you need and how we can help you solve the problems that you have in your job related to the training and the things that you use us for. So I just wanted to set that context as we got started. Really encourage your engagement. If you don't know if it's a question we can help you with, ask us anyway, because we're really eager to help. And thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your attendance today. And we look forward to engaging with you as we go forward. And I'll hand it back to Gretchen.
Super. Thanks, Robert. So as Robert was explaining, and as the idea of collecting data, simplifying and automating all of these processes, in a sense, has kind of one end goal, which is to send the right training to the right people at the right time. And in an effort to do that, one of the first things we all started out with, so for all of the admins on the call that worked with me in the beginning of setting up the account, we started with a user roster. And the main thing that we wanted to make sure of was that we had all the fields that were necessary for funneling folks into different groups in order for those people to get that right training, given that they were the right people, so that we were able to do the training to them through the campaign. So in light of that, obviously the data that we're collecting from you in terms of the roster, it has to be enough of data that we can separate people into groups. It has correct data so that they fall into the correct groups. So through our first conversations with me and with maybe the team that your company had for implementation, we discussed some of the things that were important for you launching training, and that gave us some indication of the different fields that were needed for uploading into our system at that time. Some of you may have some fields that others don't, and that really is just because each company is unique in what they're going to be rolling out training wise and what they need to keep track of. So that really is company based. It's what is needs based, so to speak. but we can, we can kind of give you a quick overview of, some of the typical fields that we have, obviously, are the ones that you're seeing here. And we want to make sure that these fields, that when you're bringing in additional people, that they're always, you're always filling out the field. And the reason being, because all of this, in a sense, we're taking these user attributes. We want to make sure they're correct in the correct column so that we're able to create the correct groups. Your column order has always been dependent on what you provided the very first time that you sent over a spreadsheet. So when I got that first spreadsheet, what we did was go into the CSV import, and I went ahead and mapped all of your to the spreadsheet that you had originally provided for us. So each time you send that over, whether you do that manually or whether you pull that from your HRIS system, that information comes over to us in a specific column order and specific types of information. So you can see here just a sample account in terms of the information that's in here and what we can see having been provided. All of these fields would just be brought into the information and the roster that's on the account. Again, these fields, especially the state codes, the supervisor fields, are things that we're using actively to create groups on almost every account. So again, that information just must be accurate in order to get folks into the right group. I'm going to go ahead and go over to some of these first groups so that you're able to see what we are, how we would be creating groups, how people would be falling into groups. So if we came up here, I did start a few of them so that you could have an idea, ahead of time. So most of us, start out with the compliance training being one of the first trainings that we're rolling out. So these groups are sort of with that in mind. You've got the California supervisors and non-supervisors and New York employees. And you can see what we've done is essentially take some of those fields, so supervisor being one of the most important and the state code being another, highly important field, and just create groups based on this. You'll see that if I needed to add a rule, I can add something here and add additional fields. Let's say that I wanted to say that the city, I only want folks that were in Los Angeles to be part of this. So I can add that as a field and click save in order to just essentially limit this group to just those folks in Los Angeles if there was some reason to do that. I'm going to go ahead and take that back off because I don't want to do that right at the time. But you'll see that we've got additionally our non-supervisor group. Our New York employee group, for example, is simply all employees, just with a state code of New York. So it's an easy way to get folks into one particular group to roll out the same training, as we know that New York has the same training for all of those. But let's say, for example, you wanted to, you trained everybody up through December and you wanted to send out something very particular to those hires that come on and start after the 1st of December. So what I have here is, for example, a new hire group that brings in folks just in the month of December. So all of those that were hired in the month of December, it doesn't matter if they're supervisor or non-supervisor, but I could add, let's say, a supervisory tag to say just those that are supervisors would be added here. So supervisors true, and I would save that. And I might actually just title this, for supervisors, so I'm aware of what this group is. This would allow me to send out something. Let's say I have a special policy that they might not have received yet, and I want to send that to them exclusively. So I'm just going to gather those that are hired after December 1st, but before December 31st, and only those that are supervisors. We can do this with, for example, as the new year comes around, you might have new hire groups that are segregated just into hired after the 1st of January, but before the end of the year next year. So all those that were new hires within the year of 2020. So there's ways to break those groups apart in order to allow for specific trainings or specific campaigns that you're wanting to send them through. I want to just go ahead and give an opportunity to ask any questions about groupings at this point or some of the roster fields at this point. I just want to make sure that you guys are feeling free to send any questions that you have about that. And again, the way that the groups on your account were created initially were specifically from one of the first conversations that we had in order to create the groups that would be specific to your training needs. So the ones that you have on your account currently were from that first conversation. But obviously, as you go forward, you'll be needing to create additional groups, create additional rules for some of those groups in order to close off a group or open a different group. So you'll want to just be aware of how these, how adding rules and how deleting rules might affect you. You can also review some of these rules and find out, let's go ahead and take this off because I don't think I have a new hire that's in that block of time. So you can see here, I've got a couple new hires in the month of December here on this account, and they would then any sort of training that I rolled out to this particular group and allow them to specifically get it as opposed to anybody else in the company. It would only be those that were hired during this month. You can also copy groups, like duplicate them, so that if there is a series of rules that you would be creating for one type of group versus another, and you want to just apply all of those rules to another group, you're able to duplicate it, which is an easy way to just take this and let's say I want to create, instead of a California group, let's say I wanted my Illinois employees. We know that Illinois is going to have their own special compliance rules starting this coming year. So let's say I'm just going to have my Illinois supervisors into a group. So you can see that I just copied a group over and I was able to just change the code, change the name, and I'm going to be able to save that. So that's a whole new grouping. If I preview this, you'll see that I have a few users that fall into this new grouping. So these people are supervisors located in Illinois. And so this will give me the ability then to have an additional group with just the supervisors in Illinois. So this way you're able to bring in folks into groupings. Some of the accounts just have supervisors versus non-supervisors. Some of them have the state as a way to, in a sense, segregate between different states because of compliance rules. And some have the new hire type of tag so that you can bring in special training for those that are new hires. So how are people placed into groups? When you're changing any kind of data in the system, so let's say you go back to your user roster and you change somebody from a non-supervisor to a supervisor, you edit their fields on their profile or by an upload, and we'll walk through about how to do that. You would be essentially, those tags, those attributes would then trigger that person to change from one group to another. So they would potentially be removed from a group like California non-supervisors and instead placed in a group like the California supervisors. So they would be moving from group to group based on the attributes that are in the user roster, whether that's manually updated, whether that's updated by a spreadsheet. The way that they change groups is by moving around according to their attributes. So if I come back over here, you'll see that there are particular groups that these folks are all into. And in order to get them into a different group, so to speak, so let's say this gentleman, Derek, is now a supervisor. In order to get him into a supervisory group, I don't change the group per se. I go into his profile and I would edit that in order to change him over to a supervisor. When I do so, you'll see that this group actually stays the same for a bit of time until the system looks for changes. So in the next few minutes, when it looks for those changes, it will then change the group over to the supervisory group. And if that group is connected to a campaign that's issuing training at the current time, would then assign training to him. So we'll just leave this open and come back to it so that you can see that that group does update, but it does not happen immediately. One of the main things that I know folks are, again, are doing after we have launched training is everybody needs to keep those new hires and employee attributes up to date. So how do you go about that? That is one of the main questions that we want to address today. So how do you go about keeping everybody up to date? How do you go about adding new hires once you've launched? And what does that do to the system and assignments and things of that sort? So let's go back over to our user list. And one of the ways you can add users, let's say you have just one or two new hires that you'd like to add, you can always use this add user button, which brings up a blank profile, and you're able to go in and just complete this profile in an effort to create a new record for this person. So you would just fill these things out and you would click save, and that would create a new record for them. So that's a very easy way to do, a one-time add. Let's say though you wanted to bring in a number of different people, and you wanted to add, you have a group of new hires, and maybe you even have some terminations, maybe you have some edits like supervisory changes, name changes, things of that sort, and you want to go ahead and update those. You can also do a manual CSV import, and you could also choose to do a scheduled CSV import. We have a way to bring in from your HRIS system through an SFTP. So some of you are using that. So you're not worrying about new hires on a weekly basis. That's an automated process for you. But some of you do need to bring in your new hires. So you would be using the CSV import tool, and clicking into here brings up a list of all of my past imports that I've done. And it gives me the ability to do a couple things here. One of them is to download a CSV report. And that CSV report would be all of the columns that you have mapped on your roster and all the data coming that you have in your system at this current time. The download template button would bring down only the column headers in the correct order, but would be blank for example, just uploading new hires. What I'm telling most of the new clients is I think it's helpful to download the full roster at least the first few times, just to get an idea of how some of those fields are filled out and what kind of data you would need in them, so that way as you're importing things, again, the data, the attributes that you're passing along need to match how the groups were set up. So it's just important that, for example, if I have a group that is looking for anybody with NY as their state, and let's say I filled out the template calling it New York written out in full, that wouldn't necessarily be a match, and therefore they would not be pulled into the NY group. So it's helpful, I think, to see what kind of information you're bringing in through your roster. So if I were to do this download CSV, I would be getting something that looks just like this. And I would have all of my information come down. You can see here in these the information that I have in the system. And I wanted to show you essentially what it would look like to add a few new hires. So you can see those in green right now. And additionally, I'm going to update the supervisor level of somebody through a spreadsheet upload. I'm also going to deactivate somebody through a spreadsheet upload. So instead of having them be in active status, they'll now be inactive, and that will deactivate their profile. So I have this ready to go. What I would do essentially is just take my file, and I would go ahead and drag this over here. So you can see that that activates the upload file button. Before that was not activated, and now it is. So I'm able to then bring in this CSV. So if I go ahead and click upload file, where it will take me is back to the mapping. Let's say I've added an additional column because I need to add an extra attribute to my profiles in order to group people differently. So I'm going to then have the option to map something here if it's not already mapped. You can see that these have already all been mapped. And so I typically, when I'm uploading spreadsheets, just do a quick check to make sure that my column names all match the mapping. And I would go ahead, this just gives you a quick overview of who's in here, of the first few lines on my spreadsheet. You can see that there's not 28 folks on this list right here, because this is just a preview. I'm going to go ahead and start the import here. And what you'll see is that it's going to go through the process of importing. So currently the status is importing. You're going to see that it's processing these different records, and it's now finished. Status is imported. My new users have been added. You remember there was 3 green users at the bottom, and 23 users were updated. That may mean that attributes were edited, or it may just mean that they looked at their profiles to be sure that if there was any edits. So you've got a few new users and all of your updated users. So let's go ahead and go back to our user table.
Hey, Gretchen.
And we're going to be able to see that, yes.
We have a question.
Go ahead. Sure.
The question is, can you mass update manager status, or does each individual needs to be updated one by one?
The supervisory status, the manager status. Is that right?
Yes.
So you can see on the spreadsheet that this line number 12, this supervisor status, I went ahead and changed them. They were no before, and I went ahead and changed them to yes here on the spreadsheet. So you can see that when I imported it, this particular person, Jennifer, moved from the non-supervisor group into the supervisor group, and their profile went from no to yes. So we did update their supervisor status from the spreadsheet upload. So really any of these fields can be uploaded, can be updated through the spreadsheet changes. So you can see if I needed to change somebody's last name, if I needed to change their supervisor status, maybe they moved to a different state, and anything of that sort. Really the only thing that you cannot update on a spreadsheet upload is the email address, because that is the sync key. That is what it's looking for to sync. So if, for example, you have somebody who's, let's say, changed their last name and the email address has followed suit, that would be the only manual update you would need to go in and make to their profile, because the email address must match the system to the roster that you're importing in order to take any other changes into account. But all other fields can be updated via this spreadsheet. So we can see that the last 3 folks were added. Let's see down here, Sarah, Aaron, and Paris, and those 3 are falling right here. Sarah, one of these, Sarah, Aaron, and Paris. They're in different groups depending on when they were hired, depending on where they're located, and they fall right into those different groups in order to allow them to get the training necessary for them. So you'll be able to see all of that information. And just as a tip, what I typically do, this isn't going to work well right this minute because I've actually added all of these today, but what I would typically do is add to this roster view this date added, and this would show me when somebody was brought into the system. So had I uploaded this initial spreadsheet in November, just these 3 new hires would then have the December 3rd date. And so I typically use that sort with and bring those folks up to the top so I can just assure myself that you can see right here, those 3 are the last added. So they then are at the top when I did that sort. So that helps you just sort of confirm that what you imported is now up to date in the system and ready to be assigned if these groups are connected with active assigning campaigns at this time. So as far as adding any of your new hires and editing folks, I think that's really one of the main tasks, after launches happen, to continually update any of the information here. And this kind of gives you, kind of walks you through essentially how to do that. Again, I want to just point out that when you're looking for that roster with the column order, that you're going to want to go into this CSV import and use these download buttons for that report. It's important that you do it from here, because that way you are able to get an accurate column order and everything that's available to you for the upload of that data. I want to go back here and just show you there is another report that you can pull, and I think sometimes people can be confused by this, so I just want to make sure this is clear. This download CSV of all users would be used for anything you see here on this user roster. You can download it. So there are times when I've worked with clients, we need to check what groups people are falling into. There's some different information I might pull from this, and so I would use this download CSV to down all the columns I'm visibly seeing here. This is not the correct order for your upload though, so just keep that in mind, that you're going to want to go into the CSV import and use those download buttons there in order to get a correct template to import again. As far as adding new hires and making edits, does anyone have any additional questions? I feel like this is one of the most important tasks that you will be performing, and I just want to make sure that what I've communicated is clear and you guys are able to, would you feel comfortable in a sense going onto your account, pulling down a current roster, making edits and re-importing that at this point? Would you feel comfortable doing that, or do you have questions about something in that process that I can make sure I clarify for us all?
Looks like a couple of people are typing questions.
Perfect. So while we're just kind of wrapping up the idea of user management, I just wanted to remind all of you that we are going to be talking next week a bit more about the training assignments and how people actually get training assignments. That's going to include things like the campaigns and notifications. And then the following week, we'll be talking about monitoring campaigns, which really deals more with the reports that are available. There's just a number of reports and ways that you can pull that information. So we're going to go over, what do you do to sort of monitor campaigns, and if you need to make changes, what kind of changes can you make at that point?
Okay, maybe there weren't people typing questions. I think I misinterpreted that.
All right. No worries. Okay, I am going to also, I want to show all of you what we are going to, in a sense, move questions into is going to be our new admin community. And I want to show you all, where to go to get there in a sense. So from our help site We've added a community feature. So we want to create this really to be helpful for all of you. So it is meant to really be something that all of you can use, and we want to be responsive there in terms of questions. But I think a lot of questions that come along are things that other people need and want to know as well. So we want to really give the ability to ask and answer in a way that everyone can see the information. So if you go to our help site and click this join the conversation under the community tab, this will take you over to our community. And I would just encourage you to check that out so that you are able to come in here and ask and questions and get feedback here. So we have some different things. We have just kind of a what's new forum, so that things that, the announcements would be available here. Any sort of, I'll be adding when we do post release notes and things of that sort, just to kind of give people a ping that something new is available on, whether it's in our guide or whether it's in, in the product itself, etc. We want to make sure that people are aware of just what's new in our community. We want to give you a way to ask questions about our product. Maybe you're not sure how something works. Maybe you want to know about how to better use one of the tools. We want to make sure that you're directed to this product help, product feedback and feature requests. I know that we have, a lot of what we've done over the last few months has been in response to feedback that we've gotten, requests that we've gotten, understanding your pain points and what you need to do in terms of training, and how the product would make it easier if it did. And so we want to know what is working, what's not working for you, what would be helpful. This is really important to us. This is one of the main reasons that we have, and we want to have this community be active, is that we want to hear from you what it is that is important to you in terms of how you're going to use the product and what would make it better. Some of you have compliance questions. So for example, things like, Brittany, for example, you've been waiting for patiently, and I'm still waiting to get some expert information. But what do the new laws in Illinois mean for us in terms of training? That wouldn't be something that's exclusive to one company or one account. That really is a question that many of our clients need to know. This is a great place to ask something like that. Do you have a compliance question? Post it here so that we can all kind of participate in answering and seeing some of those answers. I'm trying to just be sure that we're staying in compliance by training in a certain time frame. Mm-hmm.
Hey, Gretchen, sorry, I think we lost you for a sec. You cut out there, so I just wanted to.
I'm sorry.
At least I did. At least I did. Maybe others didn't, but right at the end. Just wanted to let you know.
Okay. Thank you. I will try to talk slower. I think when I speak fast, it starts to freeze on me. So when we're talking about moving from compliance to culture, that might be things like our culture is going to be changing due to somebody that's coming aboard, and how do we prepare our workforce for this transgender employee to come aboard? What should we do to prepare for that? That might be, dealing with conflict resolution, things that really have an impact on your culture. And this really comes into play when we look through the insights that are generated, all of the data that's generated by the trainings that you're taking, that all of your folks are taking, and taking a look and evaluating how can we now take what we've learned through this compliance training and make it something that actually changes and betters our culture. So we want to just give a place for that discussion to happen. And then we also want to find out, what are your content needs? What are you looking for in terms of the content availability? Some of you have very specific scenarios that you would love to have a micro lesson about. We want to hear that. We would love to know, what are those scenarios that you would like addressed in one of the videos, so that we can use that for content that we would then produce. Maybe you are a company that needs to train in some very specific matters, and you want to just let us know, these are the things that we're going to be training on in 2020. We will hear those things so that we're able to respond to them. So let us know if there's ideas you have, if there's scenarios you'd like addressed. Even when things like I'm looking over posts on Facebook and I see that, a friend of mine has gone through something that seems like it could potentially be a harassment claim. Those kinds of scenarios are, great material for then passing on to our content team and saying, hey, this is kind of a life situation that happened. Can we use this for a micro lesson and make that available to our clients? So just keep that in mind. If there are things that you would like addressed as, as a scenario in the training, we'd love to hear about it. So this community really is for you, and we want to make this available to you in the sense that we want to hear your questions here, things that might be applicable to other clients, things that are general in that sense. We'd love to see those things posted here. We'd love to see you participate in conversation here so that we're able to then service you in an easier way. So I would encourage you to, go to our help center, find this community. Again, let me just go back one more time. So again, it's just on our main support page, but there's a community feature now, so you're able just to join this conversation, is what the line says right now, and create a post, and we will be monitoring this really closely in order to provide, good information and feedback to folks so that we're able to answer those questions that you might have.
Hey, Gretchen, do you just want to show people, I don't know if I missed it, if I wasn't paying attention for a second, how to get to the help center from the product? I don't know if, did you show that?
Oh, I did not show that. Thank you for reminding me. No, I did not. So let's go here. If I was in either the manage tool section, or if I was a learner, from either place, you would be able to go up to your initial in the circle, which drops down this top menu. This option for help, if you were to click that, it would open up directly into our help center. So that's a way that you can always find our help center, the main page of it. Obviously, there's lots of information already in here, but you can always access that from this top menu and the help option.
Great. We want to have one more call out for any other questions related to user management in the system. Anything else that people hoped to learn about, still want to learn about? We've got a little bit of time left in the schedule. Anything else before we wrap up? All right. Looks like a no. Well, hopefully, if you do have questions and follow up, as Gretchen just said, the community link off the help center. We're going to be monitoring the community closely. So probably the fastest way to get help with an issue over the next weeks and months is by posting it there. And as we'll have multiple folks from support and product and implementation monitoring those conversations to make sure we're really responsive to you. So that is place for you. Gretchen, do you want to say maybe just a couple words about the upcoming sessions and what we're going to cover, and then let folks go?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, next week we will be talking more specifically about training assignments. So how training assignments are delivered, essentially your new hires, how do they get training issued to them? So that will involve us creating some campaigns and looking at the notifications and how those are set up. So it's definitely an important piece. If any of you are looking to create some new campaigns or want to understand better how to use those, you'll definitely want to be listening on that. And then the following week is going to be more focused on reporting. We're going to talk about how to monitor campaigns. So watching, for completion rates, what do you do? How do you find the information you need in terms of completion rates? How do you pull those reports? What do how do you respond to a campaign that may not be as successful as you were hoping? What can you do about it? What changes can you make to it? So we've got those coming up in the next couple of weeks. So we definitely would love if you have questions ahead of time about campaigns or about reporting, and you want to send those along, you want to add those in the community, we will be watching for those so that we're able to make sure that they're addressed during our training sessions. But we would definitely love to have you participate in those, bring your questions, even be account specific, just so that we're able, if you have something that you need to know on your account, it may be something that is relevant for other accounts as well, just how something works. So feel free to ask that, feel free to bring that to us. We really want to make sure that you are equipped as the account admins to do these tasks, to bring in your new hires, to adjust the groups as needed, to create new campaigns, to pull the report you need. As Robert was stating in the very beginning, the product really is for you and to make things more simple for you. And so we want to know, how you are looking to use the platform, how you're looking to train folks, and what we can do to make this a simpler product for you and simpler, task-wise, what can we do to make it a better product for you? So please be in conversation with us about that, whether it's the community, whether you reach out to me personally. We definitely want to know so that we're able to continually take your feedback and use that for our feature creation, the tools that we add, and just for bettering what we have developed here. So I just want to say again, thank you for being part of this training session. Again, if you have any questions, please reach out to us, post them in the community, let us know what's unclear, how we can help you. And even for most of you that I have worked with over the last 2 weeks when we've talked about these, uploading for the first time, please reach out, the first time you do it, and let us know if you want somebody just to kind of make sure we walk through it with you. We want to make sure that you do that and comfortable, feel confident about updating and keeping your users up to date. So again, thanks so much for being part of today's training, and we will be circling back with some information about how you can review this recording via email. So again, thank you, and we will hopefully see all of you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, folks.